Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Elevate Your Life podcast. We're doing episode number 106 today, Cheryl.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe it though, because it really doesn't seem like that many to me now.
I
At
know.
first I was like, oh my gosh, 100, that's so many. Now it's like 106 is not that many. We still have a lot more to do, Paul.
We got thousands to do, Cheryl. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes, we do.
But I want to start off this podcast today with a funny story. So I was flying on an airplane, listening to a Tony Robbins recording. It was actually kind of late at night when I landed back in New York here. And I called Cheryl in a panic. And I said, Cheryl, I have no standards. And I don't know, if you're probably asleep already and you're like, what is wrong with this guy? We may have no standards. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But, I listened to this whole Tony Robbins recording on standards, and that was 5, 6 years ago. And now it's become something we talk about literally on a daily basis. And it's something that, really can change. It sounds so simple, elevate your standards. Like that's like, oh, thanks for telling me that, Paul. Glad I wasted my time coming to this podcast. But we're going to explain to you why that's so critical. Like it's the most important thing you can do, a starting point, if you want to elevate your life.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've grown up with standards like in church, right? So our church talks about standards all the time and about, because I think it really is, as you're growing up, who you become, like whatever your standards are, whatever you decide they are, then that is the person that you become. So I think it's so important to think about it and to really take time to decide what your standards are, what they're going to be, and then really sticking to those standards.
Yeah, which we're going to help everyone do today, Cheryl.
Yeah.
So as everyone knows, I love sports. So I look at all these amazing athletes, and Cheryl's, obviously involved in tennis and loves sports too. But when we look at like the best of the best athletes of all time, we're talking about the Michael Jordans, the Tiger Woods, the Tom Brady's, the Derek Jeters, the Nadals, those type of people just dominate their sport that they're in. I mean, there's them and then everybody else like 10 levels below them. So the question is, well, what separates these people from everybody else? Why are they so great? And in a word, standards. They have higher standards than everybody else. Yeah. I just find that super interesting. Like when I first thought about that, I'm like, well, it's got to be more complex than that. But it's not.
Yeah. No, it's funny because they're so much better in their given sport. And if it just has to do with one word, you would think, well, then everybody could be like them. Right. Yeah. And I was talking last night to a friend of mine, and his son plays soccer. And we were talking about, because they're very good soccer players and they have, they have every hope to become professional soccer players. So I was just kind of, so it's interesting to me, like what they had to do to get to where they're at right now. And so he was kind of telling me, and, like at the first, when, the first team he was on, he sat on the bench and another one of his friends got to play. Right. And so then he got serious about it. His son got serious about it. And I said, oh, well, what did he do? And I mean, it's like 3, 4, 5 hours a day of playing soccer, not only playing soccer, but doing all of these other things that go right along with it. It's waking up early. It's taking the proper nutrition. It's doing all of these things at a very young age, even. So it's not like all of a sudden these guys become the best in their sport. The standards, I believe, have to start when you are very young, and you have to make that decision, right, to do it. And then you have to set whatever standards you have. And he's got a standard that is on both of his boys, dude. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And so now he never gets cut. He's like, way ahead of everyone else. And this friend that he started with is the one who didn't decide what his standards were and didn't commit fully like he's doing. And so it's the exact opposite. Right. So wow. I just think it's so fascinating.
That's definitely the divider between them.
You bet. So, and it's when you're young, right? So and wherever you're at, really, it's like, let's set these standards and really,
Do you remember
um,
what a couple of them are from that conversation, or it was no
oh yeah, well,
specific
one of
one
the,
mentioned?
yeah. So nutrition, that's one of the standards that they've set. They have to take their nutritional supplements every single day.
Mhm.
And another crazy thing, I said, really, well, have they ever been injured? Either boy. And he said, no, but everyone else has, that they've played with and that they've been playing with, because they play so much. So
Yep.
that's one of the things. Another one is that they have to do speed and agility every single day, right? Except Sunday. They don't do anything on Sunday. They do speed and agility every day. They wake up before school to play. That's another standard that they've set. They do weight training every single day. They don't eat any sugar or anything like that, hardly at all. They're very, very conscientious about what they eat and how they eat. Um, so another thing is that, okay, I'll tell you a good one yesterday. So the standard set that if you say you're going to play, you're going to play. And the boys are playing a game. And the game is that you have to squirt someone with a squirt gun and then they're out. And all these kids are playing this game and they're on teams. And it's just started yesterday. And we had kids beating down the door to try to shoot with the water guns. Well, here come the boys, and Jaden is his name, and he was riding on a scooter. Well, he saw the boys coming, so he turned around and rode his scooter the other way and wrecked his scooter really bad, like slid in so that he wouldn't run into an oncoming car. So, and hurt himself pretty bad. I mean, his back is all scratched up, his arms and his legs and everything. And it was so interesting because I just was like, oh, well, he's not going to go to practice tonight. He had practice. And, so his mom said, oh, well, I don't know if you should go to practice tonight. Oh, I'm going to practice tonight. I said I would go to practice. I'm going to practice, even though he's like totally hurt. And it was so interesting to hear his dad talking to him saying, yep, just take whatever pain and, and move that into your play tonight, whatever pain you're feeling. I was like, oh my gosh. Right. So it's that standard the work ethic is set for both boys. And the interesting thing to me, Paul, is they totally buy into it and they're all in and they're like, yes. And every once in a while, their parents will ask them, are you sure that it's worth it? Is this what you want to do? Yes, absolutely. So they're committed. And I think that's how it was with these people who are number one in their fields, anywhere,
Yeah.
in any business, in any sport,
Sure.
right?
Sure. So I there was a documentary came out a couple months ago about Tom Brady,
Mm-hmm.
and I hated Tom Brady. Like, so I'm from Buffalo. We've grown over the past 18 years to absolutely hate New England Patriots. But I'm like, well, Tom Brady was just lucky because he had Belichick as the coach, or just the system he was in. That's why he's so good. I was wrong for 18 years. Once I watched the documentary, I understood. And of course, since Tom Brady has left the New England Patriots can't win a game to save their life, and Tampa won a Super Bowl. So it's pretty clear now that it was not Belichick at all. It was Tom Brady the whole time, because without Tom, Bill's nothing. But Tom, in that documentary, was talking about like he would go in and work out at like 7 a.m. And then someone would show up at 7:30 to work out, and you'd be like, "Oh, would you sleep in today?" And everyone else felt super bad. So then everyone started coming in at 7 with Tom. What does Tom do? Raise the standard. Guys coming in at 6:30. What, are you guys sleeping in today? And then everyone's like, oh, geez. So now, and then, it's like 5 a.m. Everyone's got to be at the facility working out, or you're considered a slacker. And he would go up to people randomly in the hallways and say, how many hours of film did you watch today? 3. Oh, that's too bad. I watched 5. And the person would feel like he's the leader and he watched 5 and I'm nowhere near as good as him and I only watched 3, so they would feel bad and they go watch 6 tomorrow. So we kept everything, practice, everything there is to do with the game. He kept on raising the standards, and people were just like, it was a culture he created,
Yeah.
that just breed championships. For 18 years in a row, they won the division, made the playoffs, and won 6 Super Bowls in that time, which is more than everybody in history. So there's something,
Yeah.
it's all because of the standards he set. And you look at same thing with Michael Jordan. He's the only person in the world to do a repeat, three-peat. You got to look at what he's doing. George Jeter is considered the best baseball player of all time, not just because he's a great batting and great at shortstop, but his leadership. Like he made everybody on the team better.
Yeah.
And he has a documentary out now called The Captain, which is a 7-part series. And it's this mentality that if we don't win the championship this year, if we don't win the World Series, the whole year is a failure. So the standard set, it's
Yeah.
we're going to have that trophy or nothing. You know, um, so it's so interesting how their mentality, just becomes part of the culture and the whole team. Like a lot of people during the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, they basically came out and said, we don't really like Michael Jordan. He's kind of a jerk because he pushed everyone so hard, with his standards. Like, you got to do this, you got to do this. I demand this. It's like, listen, it's Tuesday at practice. This isn't like the world championship. He's like, oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
He treated every single day as the world championship.
Yeah.
And, it rubbed some guys the wrong way. But then they're like, well, we did win 6 championships with him because
Well,
of how
right.
hard he pushed us.
Yeah, it bothered them until they won, right? It bothers you until you're the one holding the trophy and winning. And I think that that is super important because I think when somebody can come in and you're willing to follow somebody and somebody sets the standard so high and makes you a better player, you have a choice. Either you can rise to the occasion or you can quit. I mean, that's what it is. You can do one of two things. But guess what? When you're walking across the stage or when you're holding up the trophy, you will be more than grateful for that person that pushed you. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's super important to remember too. And certainly in life, even, right? Because I know we're talking about sports, but think about it in your life also, and the people who have pushed you and who have been there and who have supported you. And I mean, I think that that is just as important, and it's just as important to have that work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cheryl, we had a lot of discussions about this over the years, and we've come up with um, the fact that there's really two types of standards. There's ones that are result based and ones that are
Yeah.
action based. And we'll explain that in a moment here. But basically, this whole thing about setting standards in your life, because we want to translate what these athletes are doing and now into your own life. It's drawing a line in the sand. It's just saying, that's it. This is where it's at, and I'm not going to go below that or, above that, whatever the situation might be. So, Cheryl, what are some examples of result based standards?
So some result-based standards. So let's just talk about weight loss a little bit because it's just simple to kind of wrap your mind around. So the first one is drawing a line in the sand would be I will not weigh over a certain amount. So you pick a weight and you would just say I will not weigh over this amount. That's just you just won't go over that weight.
Yeah. And
Um,
so, let's just say it's 150, whatever the number is. When you hit 151, you basically stop everything else you're doing and work out all day, and you stop eating,
yeah,
and you you do whatever it takes to get back to the standard.
yeah,
It's like sirens go off, and it's just we cross the line, and that's not acceptable.
right. Another one is I will not buy a dress over a certain size. So I won't buy a dress over size 8,
Yeah.
or I won't buy a dress over size 10, right?
Yeah, I think it's so great. Not only that, but what we found through weight loss and helping so many thousands of people lose weight is that once you get down to a size 8, you got to throw all the tens away
Right.
so that there's no,
No
burn
other
those
option.
bridges. Yeah,
No other option.
no other option. Like, but so many people that we know, they're like, well, I'm going to keep my tens just in case.
I know. Well, and it's so funny about this, Paul, because I went through a whole weight loss thing, and it's up and down for so long, and it was funny because I knew that when I'd go out shopping and I would buy shoes, I knew I wasn't to the weight. I knew I wasn't to the weight I wanted to be because I'm like this though. I will not buy any clothes over a certain size.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. Like I didn't set that standard for myself. I've just always had that. Like I won't do it. There's a certain size that I want to be, and I will never buy a bigger size than that. And if I'm not to that size, well then guess what? I don't get to buy anything. Which is interesting because it sets in motion that, oh, well then, we need to get back on the wagon here and get into shape. Right. So it sets my mind into that. I don't know. It's kind of like a little click in my brain that's like, okay, Cheryl, it's time to, let's get back into, whatever it is, exercising every day, eating better, whatever it is. So I love this as a standard because I think it really it reminds you that you need to get back to work.
Yeah.
Is really what it is.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about so action-based standards in a moment, but I think it's very important first, Cheryl, to set these result-based standards, with the
Right.
weight or the dress size or what have you, so that if you do go over that, you can go back to your action-based standards and fix those and tweak those and go back
Yeah.
to really, paying attention to those, being intentional about them. But let's
Yeah.
let's let's move from weight loss to money, Cheryl. So if and everyone has to decide what they're worth. So Cheryl, let's just say I feel like I'm worth $25 an hour, and somebody offers me $24 an hour. Do I take the job?
Well, no. No.
Yeah, that's you decide your worth, and that this is the line. And this is hard to grasp even for myself, that what you make right now is based on your standards. That's
Right.
the only thing it's based on. And being like, well, that's not true, Paul. Like, I'm in this profession, this is what it pays, and I'm just stuck there. Nope. You tolerate that, and you took that job knowing how much you're going to get paid. And if it was less than what you think you're worth, then you should have said no. And whether if you're in a job or you own your own business, whatever your paycheck is right now, it's the standard you've set.
Right.
And
It's what
there's
you've
times,
decided.
Cheryl, with our businesses that because with business things go up and down a little bit, but you can tell from both of us that when it goes down a little bit,
Oh,
all of a sudden the afterburners kick in, and
yeah.
it's
It's a
get to
recommitment.
work.
It's to cancel everything else.
Cheryl, we got to spend a little less time at the beach, a little more time in the office now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's so
So
true. That is so true. Well, the next one is really near and dear to my heart. And it's so you're gonna set a standard that I will not tolerate anyone mistreating me. So, and I want you guys to really think about that right now, because wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, and wherever you are in your life, if someone is mistreating you, it's because you are allowing them to mistreat you. So I think it's so important here that we set boundaries. You've got to set those boundaries. And I'm telling you, I was talking to a friend, and we were talking about boundaries and setting boundaries and the importance of setting boundaries. And my sister is really, really good at setting boundaries. Um, when I was talking to my friend, we were saying how when you set boundaries, sometimes it feels like you're being mean, and and that you, oh well, how can I set a boundary? That person will get mad at me. And I remember I was reading a quote yesterday about setting boundaries, and it says if you set a boundary and someone gets mad at you, that just you know
yep.
makes it even more important that you set that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And the way people are treating you is so much more important than someone being angry. So I just think that that's um so important. And I love the line, I love hold the line, and I always talk about that. And that's a boundary that I've set in different areas of my life. But when I say that again, Paul, it clicks, like there's a click in my brain, and I know what that means in any situation, right? If
Yeah.
somebody's angry with me because I've set a boundary, well, hold the line, hold your boundary. That is your boundary. That's what you've set. And then another great thing that
And
you,
Cheryl,
oh,
I just want to stop you there, because I
yeah.
know in your life you've struggled with this before.
Oh, yeah.
And but it's just a decision, you made, that, well, this isn't gonna happen anymore.
Right.
I mean, it's literally, it was that quick, and
Right.
now you've become excellent at setting boundaries in your life.
Yeah. I think it's super important for your well-being, right? For my well-being,
Yeah.
for your well-being, you have to set those boundaries. And I want you to really think about that, because I never thought about, well, the way people are treating me is because I'm allowing it.
Right.
It's, yes, they're doing it, but I'm allowing them to do that.
Well,
And
so yesterday you texted me a
oh,
bunch of quotes on this, because we were preparing for this podcast, and the one you sent me like really stuck out to me was, stop asking why they keep doing it and start asking why you keep allowing it.
yeah,
And
that's right.
that's powerful.
That's right. And then the other thing too, the on the flip side of this, Paul, that I think is really important is we set that standard, that that I will improve, how I treat people. So I will
Yeah,
make sure that I'm treating people in a way that's kind and loving and supportive, right? So I think that's really important too, because yes, you need to be treated with respect in that way, but you also need to treat others the same way.
absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Cheryl, because I'm sure there are people out there that treat people horribly and then they're wondered why everyone treats them bad. You got, you got to do this one first. You got to treat people good first and they'll treat you good. And now if you're treating them good and they don't, that's the problem. That's where you got to draw the
Yeah.
boundaries. But there's in the world today, there's a lot of people that are about themselves and not putting people first and really focusing on how they're treating other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Paul, I know the next one is near and dear to your heart.
Well, it's a standard, and it's. I love Ed Milet when he said, winning is more fun than fun is fun.
Yeah.
It's just you got to become obsessed with winning. So my favorite saying of all time is that winning isn't everything to me; it's the only thing. So it's just a standard that, and I love the word win. It does something for me subconsciously, and I'm always looking to get wins. And how can I win this day? How can I win the morning? How can I, win the week? So when I think about that, I'm always thinking about winning. And as we learned from John Maxwell in the leadership um, laws that we're going through, is that law of victory. Like true leaders find a way for the team to win. And that's
Yeah.
what really, when you talk about the Derek Jeters and the Michael Jordans and Tom Brady's, they've always have found like the team is down. That's one Super Bowl we were watching together. We were on vacation. We seen the New England Patriots play Atlanta, and they're down by like 30 points or some crazy number, and Tom Brady just won't allow that. He's like, we're going to come back and win this. That's the standard. We're going to win this, and they
Yeah.
did.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Well, one that both you and I have, I know for sure that a standard that we have is that our health score must be 100, right? 100%, 100. And I love that. And by the way, that just means super healthy.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't, what a health score is, contact us or
Yeah.
contact your certified holistic health coach, and we'll give you a link. It takes 5-10 minutes to fill out the questions, and then you can find out what your health score is. So we've literally taken health and made it a number,
Yeah.
so you can have something to go by, like wondering how healthy really am I, and these questions will determine that. So I love the health score system, Cheryl. That we can what you can't measure, you can't manage. So
Right.
now we can set that standard, and whenever something drops below that, you and I are both on that because like white on rice, because it's our health is the most important thing we have.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And a couple of others that I really like. My home is always clean and organized.
Yeah, this was some. I told you, Cheryl, that my nickname was Tasmanian Devil for a while
Yeah.
because wherever I'd go, I kind of created a hurricane in a completely clean space. But I changed my identity. I'm like, that's not who I am. So like, I'll put something down like I did before, but I'm like, wait a second, that's not who I am, and I grab it and I put it where it belongs.
Yeah.
And just that awareness, and we use that word all the time, can of that standard, that the standard is zero. There can't be anything on this counter, or out of place.
Well, and I love how you said that you used to be this one way, but then you made a decision and now you are,
Set a new
you know,
standard. Yep.
always clean and organized. And I think that's so important because if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is like so much, I can't do it, whatever. No, you can. And all you do is make a decision and then you just have a plan and you decide that this is how you're going to be. And I think that that's what it is though, Paul. I think it's once you decide and it's drawing that line in the sand. That's what we mean. You decide that you're going to be clean and organized and then you just follow through with that and you
Yeah.
do the little things that you need to do every day to change that. And we have here, my truck or car is always clean and organized, right? That's important too because that's easy to like really let go quick, right? Because you're hurrying, I mean honestly we're in the car all the time going back and forth, and so just to be able to do that I think makes a big difference, and to make sure that you just draw that line in the sand. And
Yeah,
then,
I know in the Marines, they were big on making your bed a certain way and everything's got to be organized a certain way and cleaned a certain way. And all the reason why they do that is so that they know that those, when you pay attention to detail, it transfers over to other parts of your life, all parts of your life,
right,
and it's so true. So if you do this in this part of your life, you'll do it in others. If you're a hot mess, if your home and truck and car are a hot mess, odds are your life's a hot mess too, because
right.
I see how it all translates or transfers over to from one area to another.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And then the last one is another standard is my credit score will never be below 800. And boy,
Yeah.
that's a crazy one.
This was one,
Woo!
and Cheryl and I really never paid attention to our credit scores, but like 7, 8 years ago, we decided, hey, this is something we should focus on. When we did, we both got over 800 in no time flat.
Yeah.
So it's a standard now, that, and basically what we've learned from credit scores is that you have to pay down your credit cards. That's the number one thing that'll lower your score is having, a lot on credit cards. We've set a standard that, so it doesn't matter how much you make in life because we both know, Cheryl, people who make millions and millions of dollars a year and are massively in debt.
Yeah.
And their credit scores, 600, which is completely unfathomable to me. But you can see how people get into that bad habit of just spending more than they make.
Oh
And
yeah.
but we're both in agreement that making more is the key to focus on.
Yeah. It's
So
oh
let's
that's
switch. Let's switch, Cheryl. Now, so we thought those are all result-based standards. So let's switch over now to action-based standards.
yeah. These are so good. And I love the action-based standards because again, remember, I like to get into action. So, but the results are very important because you have to know where you're going. So you need to know, you have to know um what you want, where you're going to draw the line on the different things and in the different parts of your life. So an action-based standard that we have is getting up at 5 a.m. That is super, super important because again, like Paul said, he wants to win his morning. And that's how we win our morning is by getting up at 5 a.m. and getting all the things done that we need to do before anybody else gets up. Right. I love that.
Yeah, that's my number one standard, and my number two standard is that I have to get 7 hours of sleep, or I'm basically useless.
Yeah.
I just my I'm not thinking straight. I'm making stupid mistakes. I'm not as productive, and it just you need that rest. Sleep is critically important. So I know I need 7 hours. So the third standard I have, Cheryl, which I fought forever, which is going to bed at 10 o'clock. Like I hate that. I know you also like to get to bed at a certain time is a challenge, but
Listen, I'd love to go to bed at 8 o'clock,
yeah,
but it doesn't happen.
it's,
So
it's that whole kids thing, that family thing that gets in the way of that.
yeah, exactly. That's
Um,
absolutely right.
but yeah, so based on those first two standards, I have to set a standard to get to bed at 10 o'clock. So I'll never get 7 hours of sleep, and I can't get up at 5 a.m. unless mathematically I go to bed at 10 p.m. So it's been a standard in my life, and something I've been able to really reprogram in my mind and start associating more pleasure to that and assign a new meaning to it. What does that mean? I think before it meant something like I'm being cheated, or there's other things I want to do, or something, and I wasn't sticking to that standard. But now I do, because I understand that the meaning of it is I'm going to feel great tomorrow, which is exactly what I want. So giving the meaning to things is super, super important, especially when you talk about these action-based standards. What are some other
Yeah.
action-based standards, Cheryl?
Well, one of them is taking our supplements every day. So that's super important. That's really, um, you got to do that because if not, your immune system won't work right. Your gut won't work right. You won't feel well. You'll be lethargic. You won't have the energy you need, all of these different things. So I think taking your nutritional supplements every day is by far one of my most important action-based standards.
Absolutely, Cheryl. And you've been doing it for 25 years, and you can see it. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the picture of health.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen by accident. It's the consistency over a long period of time and setting that standard of, it's so easy to say, I'll just take them tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you do that, what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah. You'll take
I'll
them
take it the next
tomorrow.
day. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
once you lower that standard and don't stick to it, it's so easy to start slipping. And that was another thing we used to do a lot was in other things is get into that slipping thing where we weren't really holding the line. And I love that line too, that saying to hold the line, because it's so important to hold the line on these things and say nope, I don't care, I'm taking these supplements today.
Yeah, I've seen such a huge difference in all of these things, because my son really wants to be a professional tennis player, right? And so we sat down and talked about like the different things that he would need to do that. And I mean, he is dedicated. He takes his supplements every day, and the sleep thing, he goes to bed on time. He gets up early and does his stretching. And I mean, he says, I'm not going on vacation because I need to play tennis. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, wait, what do you mean you're not going on vacation? It's just like, oh my. And my daughter's the same way. And so I would say to you moms with this thing, the kids are never too young, right? Kids are never too young to set their standards and to understand and realize like what do they want. And even if they are not sure what they want, doing these simple things every day, I think will help them be more clear headed. I think will help them, especially the sleep and the taking of the 90 even. I mean, I just think that it's a whole change in who they are and who they can
Oh my
become.
gosh. And just, I want to fill the listeners in just a little background on this. I mean, Justice getting to bed at a decent time was not happening. I mean, I'd be getting up and he'd still be up from last night. I mean, they're crazy.
Yeah,
And, but once you have that vision of where you want to go in life, and like you said, it
right.
doesn't matter if you're 14 or 44 or whatever the number is, you got to have that vision. And
Yeah.
without it, sticking to these standards is super difficult. But now that he has that vision, he's able to stick to all these standards and set these standards a lot easier because the vision is pulling him.
Yeah, I was just talking to my friend yesterday, and we were talking about how if kids don't have something that they're working towards, or something that they're passionate about, and a way that they're going, and believe me, that is not what we had for a long time with
Right.
justice. So what happens, I think, to kids is they want, all of us, I believe, want to feel that feeling of accomplishment, right? Well, what happens, Paul, when you get on a game? You feel accomplishment when you move to the next level,
Mm-hmm.
and when you move to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're constantly moving to the next level and getting a little bit better and getting, and so that need is filled,
Yeah.
right? That need
That need for
of,
growth. Yeah.
yeah, for growth and for accomplishment.
Yeah.
And so if you
Significant.
don't have any other thing in your life, and I think that happened a lot during these last 2 years, it's kids were just kind of like, and they were like waiting for things to get back to normal, which I don't even think anything's going to get back to normal, Paul. Right. So it's just time to like set our standards in, result and action based and move forward.
Yeah.
Right. And find those things, that we're passionate about, but help your kids do the same things, please, that you're doing. It will change their lives. It will change their lives. And
Yeah.
I've seen it in both my kids. I've seen it in both my kids.
Yeah. Now, Cheryl, there's a lot of standards we're talking about, and some experts might agree with us, some experts might disagree with us in some of these, but the next one is probably the only one I've ever seen that everyone is 1,000% sure about, and that's the benefits of exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not walking for at least 30 minutes a day, that has to become one of your standards that you set, and it will change your life in every imaginable way. You'll
Yeah.
sleep better, you'll feel better, you have more energy, you'll be able to handle stress better. I mean, the list goes on and on of things that it will do if you do that exercise. Now, I do an hour, at least an hour a day. Cheryl, I know you play tennis for like 3-4 hours a day, so you're getting tons of exercise. And what a difference that's made. That standard we set in our lives, what it's done for us because we set that standard is just enormous.
Yeah, and it's interesting about this one, Paul. I think the better you get to know yourself, the better you will understand what it is you need to do for that exercise and for that feeling of well-being. Because yes, I play tennis and I love it. But what I've decided, which is super interesting, is that I'm going to go back to hot yoga, because that's something that I need, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. That anything else I've tried has not given me. And believe me, I've tried other things because I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. Because
Yeah.
it's hard. It's very hard for me. But that's where, and that's when I feel the best. That's when my body feels the best.
Yeah. And with working with so many weight loss clients, I would have to say that probably the number one thing that I've seen from all the people that have lost weight with me is that they all had a standard of either amount of time they do a day or even steps. 10,000 steps is a super popular number.
Yeah.
So the standard is I'm not going to get less than 10,000 steps a day. And I got clients that, it's 11:45 at night and they're walking up and down the stairs or doing circles around their house to get those that last 100 steps in because it's a standard. I'm not going to bed without 10,000 steps today.
Yeah. And the next one's super important too. And that's drinking at least 100 ounces of water per day. That is so important.
Yeah,
It's like
great
for
standard.
you, yes. But, and I'm going to tell you what I have found is a lot of kids are not drinking enough water.
Oh,
Most kids are not.
and adults, yeah.
And adults. Oh, well,
Drink,
absolutely
drink
adults,
some right
right?
now.
Yeah. I've got mine right here. Here we go. Yeah. So, okay. So the next one is we do a weekly review every week, right? So that we can plan the week ahead. And I love that. I used to not like this, Paul. You know that. I was like, no, please, not the weekly review. Why do we need to review what we've done? Let's just move forward into the next week and make it better, right? But how do you know how to make it better? And how do you know, like, first of all, you don't even think about any wins you've had. You don't think
Yeah,
about any of that. You just kind of keep going, and you don't think about any challenges either. So you don't think about either. So you can't um, celebrate the wins, and you can't look at your challenges and see how you can make next week better.
yeah,
So it's really become, and I think you're right, Paul, it's either pain or pleasure. And I've
yeah.
really decided that this is something pleasurable to do.
Well, I think the big change in both of us was when we started living by the saying, you can either live life by default or design. And I'm like, well, I don't want to live by default. So, to design it to a point where on Saturdays, I decide what my wins are going to be for the next week before they happen.
Yeah.
And I'm designing my life, and these are the wins I'm going to have this week. And it's great next Saturday to sit down and say, yeah, I did this, and this, like the 4 or 5 things that I said I was going to do. I did it. And it's just such a great feeling inside of you when you do that. And it just, you can see the pleasure behind that is amazing.
Yeah. Well, the next one is
Speaking
one
of
of my,
pleasure, Cheryl,
oh yeah, this is one of my favorites. Um, so we do the cold plunge every single day, unless we're on vacation, because I'm on vacation right now and I have not done the cold plunge. And boy, I see a huge difference.
Cheryl's like,
Wow.
Cheryl texts me. She's like, I need an ocean. I need something to
Yeah.
get that's cold, because
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, being without it's tough.
yeah. And Paul, tell us about the next one, because I thought it was really interesting what you told me about this yesterday, and about the consistency factor of it.
The elevating your spirit for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting that you said after 4 or 5 years, like you won't be able to tell at the start,
Yeah,
right? But after 4 or 5 years, you will be able to pick out the people in the room who have spent 10, 20, 30 minutes a day elevating their spirit, which I think
yeah,
is so interesting.
yeah. Just sitting down and in prayer, reading scripture, um, is
Meditating.
meditating. All that does so much for a person, And again, like you said, if you miss today, no big deal. But because honestly, one day is not going to make a difference, but it does when you have the streak going, and when you
Yeah.
can put together 5 years of every single day, you're a completely different person, no matter what it is. But it's all about the standard. I'm not doing 10 minutes today of that.
Yeah. And it's the same with the personal growth, Paul, right? It's the same with personal growth.
Yeah, I gotta do. I say 300 hours a year. I actually enjoy it so much. I go way above that. But and I love. So we have a mutual friend, Alex, that it loves to hike. So he always sets up a goal. I'm going to hike whatever 2,000 miles this year, some crazy number.
Yeah.
So I love setting these kind of like yearly numbers where I'm going to do 300 hours of something, or
Hmm.
so that because I see with justice and with everyone really, when you have that vision in front of you, you're doing this for a bigger purpose. It's not just because it's so easy to skip today. But when you know that I want to hit 300 this year, you can't skip today because I'll feel
Yeah.
bad if I don't hit 300.
Yeah.
And I know I can't do two tomorrow because that's not going to happen. So doing that little bit every day makes such a big difference. And I love this quote here, Cheryl.
Yeah. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. I love that.
Yeah,
That's so true. And it's that little, and it's that bit of consistency. So it's consistency and the little bit of extra. And I think that remembering the consistency is where it's at.
yeah. And Cheryl, just before we wrap this up here, I remember having this conversation with you about, especially women. They tend to be at the end of the day, they have these standards, these things they want to get done, and they didn't get them done. A couple of them didn't get done. And you were like, again, women especially, typically, beat themselves up over that. And
Sure.
they look at the day as being a failure and going to get to a bad place. I really believe that there's only two states out there. You're either in a strong state or a weak state.
Yeah.
So if you get to the end of the day and you missed a few of these, oh, I didn't drink 100 ounces of water a day, I only drank 75. Like how much, should you beat yourself up over that? In my opinion is not a lot. I mean, you need to feel the pain that this was a standard, I missed it. But from what I hear from you, Cheryl, again, women do this typically. They go a little bit too far with the beating themselves up over it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I really think you just need to make that decision that, hey, you know what, tomorrow I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
And it seems like a lot, but just start with one or two that you really want to work on and setting that standard. But know that there's these standards that you want set, that you're going to set them. And then, yeah, I think you're right, Paul. Don't beat yourself up about it. It doesn't do any good. It doesn't help, right? It just, I think it's just harder when you start the day tomorrow. So just realize what it is and make that commitment. Draw the line in the sand that hey, you're gonna get these things done tomorrow, and then do them.
yeah,
You know, and soon they'll become a habit, and I think it will become much easier.
absolutely. It just becomes who you are. It becomes part of
Yeah,
your identity.
right.
So Cheryl, we're gonna give everyone homework a little bit here to actually sit down and take what we said in this podcast to heart because it will change your life when you sit down and you're like, okay, what are the result standards that I'm going to have in my life? And go back to this podcast and we gave some examples of things, but there may be some other things in your life that you also want to set a result standard for. So this is kind of like a final number that you're either not going to go above or go below. And then there's action standards, and those are easy to figure out because it takes some kind of action to make that happen. So a list of both those things, Cheryl, I think is super, super important. And I love what you just said. Don't make a list of 10 today. Do one. We talk about make your bed in the morning. I'm not gonna go to work without making my bed. That one little thing will, because you do it consistently for a week or 2 weeks, it's going to build massive self-confidence first of all because you're showing up, you're doing something you said you were going to do. Now to add a second one becomes easy. I think where overwhelm comes in and people have massive failures when I got 50 standards I'm setting today, and
Yeah,
there's
that
just no
doesn't.
way you don't have that muscle to do 50 standards.
Yeah, and if
you
you're
know
confused about any of these or whatever, then just, reach out to us, and especially about a nutritional plan. I mean, that's always hard for people that I talk to, Paul, about exactly what they're supposed to take or how they're supposed to take it. But we can help you with that and really get you on a plan and help you and support you along that journey. So I think that's super important too to remember, that we're here to do that and to help with weight loss or any other things that are going on with you. Just let us know. We're more than willing to help you with that, or reach out to your holistic health coach, and I'm sure that they're the same, willing to help with those things.
yeah. So if you go to elevateyourlife.com, our contact information's on there first and foremost, so you'll be able to contact us. Second of all, you can get all the notes from this podcast at the same website, elevateyourlife.com, and be able to read them and then be able to work through and set your standards.
And elevate your life is ELEV8. And I just always want to remember that, because I know that I have had people reach out to me and say, I spelled elevate your life and it didn't come up. And I'm like, okay, wait, it's with an 8.
Yeah, I keep on thinking everyone's watching this on YouTube, but this is a podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts and everything else.
Yeah,
because we have these big signs behind us that spell elevate. But if you're not actually watching us do this, then it's very difficult to see that.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. So our +1 for today, Cheryl, is to obviously elevate your standards to elevate your life.
Yep. And as you elevate your standards, it will help you move from fine to fabulous.
It sure will. All right, great podcast, Cheryl. I love this one. Hopefully people got some great value out of this. Do your homework because it will change your life.
Absolutely.
All right, talk to you soon, everyone.